this video. So hold tight and listen to the video.
She gets, warning them human trafficking can happen in any home to any one of their kids. She knows because her daughter Sam was trafficked by her boyfriend, and Linda had no idea. Now she does what she can to raise awareness to help parents protect their kids. And Linda Harlos is with us now to try to do just that. So what you know now could really be critical for other parents. So can you help us with the red flags that maybe you miss that other parents need to be watching for?
I think what we need to understand is that our kids can have some vulnerabilities that we may not be privy to. And we need to start looking for those signs of where our child is starting to kind of pull away from us, or they've got a new set of friends, or they're doing something different with their hair, the way they're functioning. So if you know your children, which most of us do, you're going to see those signs very, very quickly that something's not right. And with Samantha, because she had been raped, she also felt very ostracized in the community, and she felt like she'd lost a lot of friends. So it became very easy for somebody to target her and give her those things that she thought she really needed, which was friendship and a good life.
And so as a parent or as a guardian, knowing that, what can you actually do to shield your kids from this?
There's a few things that you need to do. Her boyfriend lured her away from or tried to lure her away from the family by doing what he could to cause fights. And he was promising her a lifestyle that she really wanted, which was a big family. We did what we could to just try to keep lines of communication open because we understood that something wasn't right, but we couldn't pin what it was because we didn't know what human trafficking was. Educating yourself is a huge thing on this, which is my goal. But the other thing that you need to do is make sure that your lines of communication are open about the sex topics. And I know sometimes those are difficult to have with your kids, but if you're ready and willing to talk about those difficult conversations, they're going to know that they can come and talk to you about those questions that they have. And those questions might be vital questions that will give you a huge key of whether or not there's something wrong that's going on in your life. And lastly, you just got to make sure that your kids know without a shadow of a doubt that you love them. And you can't just say, I love you. You need to say, I love you no matter what.
And what about Sam now? How's she doing?
She's doing great. My grandson is 11 and she's been married for 2.5 years. She works for Victim Services, going around to schools, talking about this to the younger kids. As a victim, she understands and can really portray that. And she's hoping to become a police officer and work in this department.
Fantastic. Well, she's got a great mom.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Hi.
All right. As I stated, that was a video. That was a story of a person who is a survivor. Her mother was there. And the key things that stood out to me in that video was she came from a household that they showed love, they did things together. And then she mentioned one thing that stood out. It's not just saying that I love you, it's saying I love you no matter what. So if we can just take 30 seconds and take that in, think about children, think about the children in your life, and allow for that to just sit into your spirit for just a brief moment. And we're now going to go directly into some questions because I'm sure you have many things that I've seen in this chat box that you really want to ask Jennifer, and she is here for it. D'Angelo already said at the beginning that this is some information that you would love to have. And when you get this information, take it, use it, and share it with someone else. Okay. All right, Jennifer. So how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be with you all today, and thank you so much. I just want to wave at all of my smiling friends. I miss seeing you guys at Juvenile Court where we do the work together. And the one unique thing about this issue is although our organization's mission is surrounded and aimed directly at serving youth involved in exploitation, it is everybody's responsibility. We got to do it together. One nonprofit can't change trafficking,
Yeah.
and we can't expect the school system to only be the front lines, just as we can't expect the juvenile justice system. And just as we also recognize that we can't expect parents to be able to handle it themselves. And so I'm really excited to be able to talk through what it looks like what true prevention looks like when it comes to kids. And that's not a magic button that we create this really cool equation with at Youth Spark. And we say, if you do this and this, then you won't have any victims around you and your family or your kids. There are things that go beyond our control. And so, tonight I really invite you to think about everything that we love about technology and that keeps us connected throughout this time when we were not able to be together. And it is not our children's fault that they have Snapchat. It is not our children's fault that they are used to being on their devices and that they have the internet, which gives them instant access to everything. Back in the day, we didn't have to, sort of deal with that. So, I want you to really hold that some of the very tools that we use to stay connected can be used to recruit young people. And it is no dig to your parents and skills. And I know some people want to say, tell me the stories of the parents of all the kids. Did you have parents who did not properly know how to take care of their kids and keep them safe? Yes. Did you have parents that didn't use the tools that the schools and social workers and therapists gave them? Yes. But do you have parents that will drive the streets looking for their child? Yes.
Yes.
You have parents who will show up at the police station every day begging someone to treat their child as a missing person versus a runaway. So this is going to be a really great time for us to just talk through some of the things. And while we just talk about trafficking, and then we came out of a whole month where I'm sure you learned about so much. I mean, I know everybody at IHTI feels good about that we made it through January because it's a great opportunity. But I just wrote a love letter to Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and I said, I want to break up with you because I want people to care about this all year long. And so January can be Human Trafficking Awareness Month, but at Youth Spark, we call February through December Human Trafficking Action Month. And so let's start to think about that because you all have the very unique ability to be a saving grace for someone because they're not going to run into Fulton County Juvenile Court and say, I need to talk to Miss Jen. And they're definitely not going to run into the National Center and IHTI and go, hey, can someone help me? They're going to look to the people that they care about. And they're going to say, you know what, Miss Linda is always so nice to me. Miss Linda always listens to me. She'll sit down and have a conversation, and she doesn't just ask me about my grades, but she wants to know about things. They're the person that they're going to reach out to you. So all of you are in these very unique positions.
Well, let me ask you this. I know you made a lot of great points, and of course, we have a mixture of audience here, but I believe everyone on this call, they know or have had some type of way of being an impact to a child, whether it's being the person that reported at the school, any type of way. What many people may want to know as it relates to sex trafficking or human trafficking, because it goes beyond that, which I'm sure they'll learn a little bit about. How would you say that conversation should start with that child and the parent and the child? Like from the video, we saw a parent who was providing great shelter, great love and support. However, something happened.
Mhm.
And many parents are probably having that, not my child, because they are given those things. So, how would you tell a parent to start that conversation with their child at whatever age to whatever age that may be?
Well, I think the really cool thing that we found from doing the work and serving victims, and we serve victims that cover a spectrum. Like some of our victims have pimps, and they are some of the horror stories that you see on the movies like Taken, and you see the Law and Order episodes. But some of our kids come in and they have an older boyfriend, and they really believe it's an older boyfriend. And they have no clue at all that this person is manipulating them. So one of the things that you have to recognize is we have to almost take away this construct of what trafficking looks like because then it doesn't become a problem that we should be having because oh no, not my kids. But young people spend more time at school than any other place. Young people spend more time with their peers than any other place. And so it is our job as parents and loving adults for any young people in our life to really help them navigate their decision making. And one of the things that I have learned working with our young people is that they don't feel safe in their voice. But the person who makes them feel safe is the person that they have relationship with. And I tell people all the time that kids don't care where the love comes from. They just care that they get it. And one of the things that I tell parents, it is up to you to decide when you want to open this topic up to your kid. But think about true prevention and talking about trafficking is not just about saying, do you know what a pimp looks like? Because if you ask young people what a pimp looks like, they are going to give you what you see on the 1970s movie. They're going to give you a Snoop Dogg video or a pimp named Slickback from the 70s, and he has to have a long Cadillac, or they're going to laugh at some of the things. And you'll begin to realize that what your perception of is very different than their perception. And you have to realize that language is very important. So I tell parents all the time, while you try to figure out how to talk to your young people, they're already at school talking about it and they're not using the right language. They know who the thoughts are. I want to say some language here. DeAndre kind of said I could, if I said some words here and I'm not going to get in trouble. But what I'm saying is, while we're spending so much time trying to figure out how do I explain commercial sexual exploitation, they know who's having money for sex. They know who's getting the bag. They know already how to use what they got. And they said that if I'm having sex out here and I'm not getting paid for it, then I'm just a hoe. And nobody wants to do that. So at least I've been taught that if I'm going to have sex, I need to get something in return. So I tell parents all the time, when you want to begin to open that conversation with your kid, you need to start talking about how do you stand up and use your voice? What does healthy relationship looks like? And healthy relationship looks like, we all know that Uncle Joe has had some molestation in this family. We all know that there's this one guy at the family reunion that all your aunties tell you to stay away from, but he's still here. So what are we teaching young people very early on? We're telling them very early on that some things are okay, some things you sweep under the rug. And kids don't know the difference between the two. So you always want to start out as early as possible, reinforcing what does healthy relationships look like? How can you own yourself and your safety? Even if, because again, about 80% of victims have a prior history of sexual assault and sexual abuse. 50% of that is some form of intrafamiliar exploitation or abuse. So if you have the people that you are telling your kids to be around, you have to tell them what bad adults look like. And that also means Uncle Joe. That also might mean me. That might mean your stepdad. So we have to start before you begin to open up and talk to kids and say, let's tell you what the definition of commercial sexual exploitation is. We want to talk about, do you have a safe person outside of yourself with your kids? That's the number one thing we work on with our kids, because if your kid is involved in something and they have said, I'm going to tell your mom, or I'm going to show your dad, or I'm going to send this video to the church, or I'm going to give it to the judge when you go back in there. Like, if you've had any of these types of things, what person wants to move forward with that? They don't. And there's a level of guilt and shame that comes when you've been forced to use your body for sex. There is a level of guilt and shame that just wears it on you. And all of us on this call look really good tonight, right, Kedra? We all look really good. Nobody looks like what they've been through.
Right.
And we have to realize that when we don't show kids and talk to them about what happens, then we're not giving them the space to be honest. So I tell parents all the time, I know that nobody can tell you what to do with your kids, but you need to have an identified safe person. So if for whatever reason someone is blackmailing your kid, they are trying to extort them with the video, they are basically bullying them online. Anytime you have that, you need to say, if you can't talk to me, or if you're too embarrassed to talk to me, here is who you go to. Now, that may look like your best friend, that may look like a mentor. As a parent, you are giving your kid permission to say, for whatever reason you can't talk to me, here is who you go for. And that's what we got to start the conversation with. You don't get to trafficking until you're all the way at the end of the line there. There's so many other things we need to talk about before we get to that.
Yeah, I would like to add on to some of the things, well, piggyback on some of the things that you had mentioned, because you brought up a lot of great points. Working in the school system, I had an opportunity to come in contact with a young lady that I was mentoring. And like I said to you before, this is a person who her mother experienced the same type of trauma at an early age, but it was not defined. And what happened is it get pushed around like she just fast. She's just a fast tail girl. She get what she deserved. And then you realize that being a mother that have experienced that, who this is what people were saying, then God forbid you have your own child and it's familiar, but you don't have any tools. You don't have a platform like we're doing right here tonight. You have none of that. And then you go to repeating this cycle. And we want to know how. And then a lot of the things that you had mentioned, when kids don't feel that they can be vulnerable. And that's is so important. And we don't recognize it a lot. But we talk a lot about young ladies, but we also have to understand there are little boys too. There are little boys that are, you pointed out the social media, the video games. When kids cannot go to their parents or that trusted adult, then they are pushed into the street. If a parent disown their child and now have wanting to have nothing else to do with them and they push them out, that's you pushing them to those vulnerable situations. Not just about this kid that want to be spoiled and just want what they want, but they find a way of being manipulated to get the things that they want. So you definitely brought up a lot of great things. Can you share with them in your experience, what stories have you received from people of that you could recognize to be a vulnerable moment for that child, so that they can understand that a loving child and then a child that have experienced some other type of things can be vulnerable as well?
Yeah, I think it's, one thing is that you got to trust your instinct. It tells us when something's not right with kids. And we talk ourselves out of it because we don't really know. And so it's usually that thing that happens and you're like all of a sudden this person all of a sudden this person she just started being different. Fifth grade things were really really cool and then all of a sudden sixth grade she became really withdrawn. All of a sudden, she spent more time. He started cutting himself. He would stay overnight for extended periods of time. He came home with new friends, started hanging with older people. There's going to be some sort of a life change, and it may be significant. It might be insignificant. But anytime there's a change in behavior, and when kids are not active, I grew up in a place where we were in the band, and when the football season was over, we played basketball. When basketball season was over, we went to debate, and from debate, we went to church, Sunday school, vacation Bible school. We had so much to do all the time, but there are a lot of young people who simply have nothing to do. There's no one motivate them. So I tell people sometimes you have to keep your kid engaged. And I know everybody's not going to be sports, but get them into a STEM program, give them volunteer roles, because when kids come to the table, they actually, when you give them a seat, they show up. And we see that with our kids. They come in and it's like they've never been treated of value before. And we have to build that back up. And then, you know, some kids, again, if they're spending more time, there's a change in their behavior. One parent said that all of a sudden her child didn't sleep as well anymore. She was never almost comfortable at times. So you have to begin to realize whatever things that your kid may be experiencing, whether they are, even if they're questioning their sexual orientation or gender identity, if you're not there to move them along in that conversation and help them to explore and navigate that, they're going to find the information from somebody else out there in the street. So I wish I can tell you guys that if your kid came home with multiple STDs and that's, oh, you are definitely a trafficking victim. Or if your kid just started missing curfew, normal teenagers do all this stuff, and whatever that means, normal. So you have to realize it's much more than the red flags. we need to be looking on a different level. And when I mean looking, I mean we got to see kids. We got to talk to kids. And I heard a pimp say to me in a training one time that I'll talk to your kids longer than you will.
And
And
you know, when you say things like that, is shocking. And I see a lot of comments and people wanting to know, you have your kids that are in an autism unit or a behavioral disorder unit that are in schools, and people like to put them in a category, but yet they can be vulnerable. So how could you even have that type of conversation with a child that is experiencing some type of disabilities, not just physical, but like a mental disability?
yeah, and see, we've gotten some traction. Again, align yourself with a mental health professional. You again, I know sometimes we always like to go to the elders and we want to pray some stuff away, and we want to just make it better. But you need to align yourself with an agency that might help you in turn educate the child. For some of our clients who are developmentally delayed, we have to sit and we've had science lessons. We want to show you what happens to your brain and what happens to this person's brain. And this doesn't mean you're stupid. This means you didn't notice that this was a bad decision right away because this part of your brain is low functioning. So for us, we've always responded well to education. And you would never believe the amount of young people that come through our program who are incorrectly diagnosed and they are not taking the right medication. And when kids don't know to form the words to say, hey, this makes me sleepy or this is not working, this is a real example. We had one kid tell us once that, well, I'll take the meds, Ms. Jen. I'll go ahead and take them, but I'm still going to listen to the voice in my head. And everyone's like, oh, she's playing crazy. And we were like, okay, well, I asked her, what is the voice going to say? What did she say back? And she says, I need to take the meds because if not, we're going to get in trouble. She was improperly diagnosed. And so everybody and everything is telling this young kid that you are delayed. You don't get it. She feels stupid in a sense because she's trying to explain herself, but she doesn't have the vocabulary. Then we go back and we order an entire new uh, psychological evaluation. Let's start over from the beginning because oftentimes when parents don't know how to navigate their child's mental health, they don't know if they're getting the right thing or not. And we all know that we have to advocate for ourselves medically. We have to be able to say, you know what, I want a second opinion here. If you can do that when you're getting ready to have heart surgery or if you have arthritis, why can't you do that for your child? And again, that's a problem that I see really big in the Black community is that we don't oftentimes want to talk about diagnoses. We don't want to do that. So for us, we really talk about educating them and bringing them to the table, breaking that big word down, showing them the science of what's happening to them, and then creating the plan. Because when they're equipped, they don't feel so stupid. And what we found out with that other kid was that she was hearing voices because she was diagnosed with the wrong thing. She didn't have ADHD. She didn't have oppositional defiance disorder. She has paranoid schizophrenia, and the voices were still there. So she would get the meds and she would act differently, but it wasn't changing for her. So we got to make sure we are pushing through and talking through what that looks like. And when it's bigger than you, don't be defeated. Align yourself with an agency that can help you. That's what nonprofits are here for.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I'm seeing a few people make comments as well about how do you select what a safe person is or a trusted adult? I mean, do you often just say it has to be the parent, or does it have to be the counselor, or does it have to be my best friend's mom? And like, how does that look? Because I think some parents are really wanting to know, but I think one of the things we mentioned is that it could start at home.
Mhm.
So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, it should start at home because you should be having conversation to say, if something ever makes you second guess telling me something, if something makes you say, oh no, then I want you to tell someone else because at times you might not realize that whatever is bad, like, and I tell dads all the time, I'm so happy to see so many of our men on tonight. It makes me excited because I tell dads all the time, don't let your kids be so scared of you that they won't come to you. and I know you lead with fear, and it's like they're not gonna do this. The same one that you think, and I had a guy say to me once, not my kid, you can't get mine. And I had to say to him, I'll get yours faster. And I mean that with all due respect. I will get your kid faster because your kid is already so afraid of you and what you're going to do. So it's always the best. We've seen it work really well when you decide that safe person together. You might sit down if you're a two-parent household. Look, we're having a conversation. It's some really crazy things going down. Find some examples of some stories. I wouldn't suggest the one that they played here tonight because kids are just gonna go over their head. But there's a couple of videos out here that we can find for you guys. But it starts with the conversation and giving kids ownership. What we see a lot of times in trafficking is that a kid is bought and sold for sex in a exploitative situation, and then they get into the court system. And I'm like, hey, come to my program. I'm going to help you get out of trouble. You do this, I do that. We got to get out of that and making things transactional. Because when things are naturally transactional, they don't know when to turn it off. So you want to bring them to the table and say, we're going to get you a safe person, or we're adding on safe person. Who would you want to go to? If you were in trouble and this is a good example. If you were in trouble and someone says, if you tell your mom and your dad, then we're going to kill them. Would you come and tell me right away? The kid might say yes. But we tell people all the time, kids all the time, that if they tell you don't tell me, that means run and tell me really fast. But kids don't always process that because it's like, am I going to get in trouble? I should have never gave him my phone number. And I met him in the chat room, but I wasn't supposed to be in that chat room. So I don't say this. Make that plan together and say, if you needed to go to someone, who would it be? And they might say, I want to go to my cousin, talk that through with them. It might be your niece or your nephew. It may be your best friend. It may even be your boss or your coworker. But I think when you do it together, you'll get, a better buy-in from the kids.
Most definitely. And I know with IHTI, I've facilitated a couple of classes or workshops on Little Red. And when it was brought to me, I was just thinking, what teenagers are really going to watch this video because it's animated. It has these animals, rabbits and things like that. But even when I was watching it, it was like a 10-minute video. I was literally like this. I mean, because it's so real. And to know that there are resources out there. We have resources and workshops day in and day out. All you have to do is be on a platform like this, continue to spread the word, and go in on some of those things. You can learn about so much. You'll learn about the websites to pay attention to. And like you had mentioned, there are things that kids are on, they have a whole different page than what they allow for their parents to follow. But we as parents, we have to be those examples as well. We can't say what you don't need to be doing and what you shouldn't be doing and find ourselves doing those same things. But a platform like this, if you stay connected and continue to follow a place like us, a place like Youth Sparks, you can at least say you've tried, and you can be one of those parents that, God forbid, if it's happening, you know how to advocate for your child. Before we go into some of the major questions and concerns that are going over here on this chat, I would like to ask you, how do you, it says, how do you get a child to, let me see, I'm sorry. Okay, so when you're having a child, like you had mentioned, that typically gets in trouble, and they don't want to come to you and say what they've done, but they would rather go to someone else. And what if that person, they are a trusted adult that they can talk with, but that trusted adult is not letting the parent know? Like, how do you suggest that parents mingle with whoever that child's trusted adult is to make sure that they can do the help for their child?
I like that because, I often talk about, back in the day, you knew everybody on your street. Everybody knew who your mother was. If you were at the gas station and you were doing something you had no business doing, they would tell your parent before you got home, you know? So the lady next door to you could get you together outside and you would get in line. But now we've shifted to this culture where you don't even know your neighbor's name anymore. And if you yell something to my kid, they may curse you out or the mom will come and fight you. It's a very different time. So one of the things what was really important to me is we get back to this place of community and recognizing that access to care is really important. Access to resource, having resources out there that we're connected to means nothing if you don't know they exist. Having access to all the best therapists in the world and helping mom navigate in her house is very different if you don't know how to do that. And so I oftentimes tell kids that it is our responsibility. We are the adults here. You're the child. And as much as I want you to confide in me and tell me something, I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna talk to your mom about this, but we're gonna do it together. So I'm not gonna go and snitch on you right away, but you're gonna tell me this, but I'm never gonna tell you that I'm gonna keep your secret. I've seen a lot of parents do that and they get stuck in the place and it's like, well, I heard this about that child. Always utilize the school's counselors as well. Schools, teachers, the mandated reporters. If your kid tells you something, because you guys are probably the cool parents, right? All the kids want to come over and talk to you. They'll tell you everything, but they'll tell, they won't tell the whole story to somebody else, right? So you have to be able to create that community again. And that means think about the delivery. If you go to a parent and say, your kid out here in the street getting trafficked and pimped, or you letting your kid get pimped, or you're never at home, so your kid's always getting to run the streets, that's not going to help you. So I always say, if your kids' friends, your kids tell you something about their friends, always utilize the school counselor. But it's not very many people who will take that next step. Unfortunately, people will sit back and they'll judge mama. And they don't realize that mom can't be there because she has to work 3 jobs. Because working one is not going to make it. And when you think about Atlanta has the largest income inequality gap here, you can't then make judgments about mama because she has to work 2 and 3 jobs. So let's get out of this whole I'm not going to say anything, but then also say, hey, I need help because I've learned this and I don't know what resources are available.
You made this. I wish this conversation could go on, and that's why I know that if people are on this call, they will definitely continue to be a part of other things. And there are so many upcoming trainings for parents, advocates, whatever you do, there is a training. Whether you are a guardian, you can be a auntie, or whatever the case may be. There is a training out there for you. Trust me. So it's different than the way that it looked many years ago. A couple of things that I keep seeing in the chat that I want to say, I agree, and some of the things that I'm sure we both are vibing with. I'm big on language. Love language, whether you're talking about the one for kids or the one for relationships, definitely the one for kids. I would suggest anybody to just grab the book, even if you just want to scan through it, just to understand how how is my child's language, because you can be doing great things, but like the video said, you can be doing all of those things, but one small thing you could be doing wrong. And in experience of seeing these things, when it comes to friends, involve yourself enough with your children's friends in order to you to kind of know not to call those kids out. You know who your child is with, because some of the videos that you all won't see on this platform, but there are many more to come, where you will see how another child can sway your child into doing these type of things. And then it's not only this guy that we're thinking about or this woman that we're thinking about. We're talking about youth who are pulling other youth into this whole circle, and it'll happen right before your eyes. It can happen from Tamika just want me to come and spend the night over our house, or Tamika and I are going to the skating rink. Well, Tamika has a boyfriend at the skating rink who's 80 years old, who's doing a lot of different things. So again, I want to say thank you guys so very much for being on this call, and we will open up for some Q&A. But before we leave, Jennifer, is there something that you would like to end by saying?
I just want to say, thank you for the space to be able to talk about realistically what we see on the ground. I know we all care about child trafficking and we really want to be there, but let's not, be so ready to help you spark kids that we neglect the ones in our own lives. And I tell people all the time, yes, you can come over and help my kids all day, but help those kids around you. And never forget that you have the opportunity to have um, saving grace. I'm dropping two videos in the chat. What I found is utilizing these two videos with young people, you just hit play on it, and then you ask them to tell you what they saw and open and tell me what this looks like to you. One of them is called Making of a Girl. It's younger, it's not like sort of the older trafficking videos. It's it's really great. In churches, schools, public school, private school, middle school. So you don't have to cringe on it. But then there's another video called No Bigger Lie. And No Bigger Lie is very impactful because it's the words of a man who basically used to take young girls from working in his club as a dancer, and he would transition them to from bartenders to dancers to actual prostitution. And when you just put it out there, they're going to tell you what they know about it. They're going to tell you who's doing it. So don't get caught up in how to say it in the right words. Just meet them where they are, and it will work just fine. Kids need to be able to have adult conversation. That is how they learn validation. So if you don't sit down and talk to your kids, you will miss the mark. And I will tell you, I can be very exhausted at times. But when I encounter, especially one of my older girls, tell me about it, girl. What happened? What was y'all doing in school? What he said, what? What does that mean? Is it on TikTok? Is the new one? I don't know what they're saying. And I'm still fairly young, I would like to think. But I give them all of that because it's validating them. And kids learn validation through adult conversation. So spend the time with the kids in your life. Reach out to your nieces and nephews. The next time you're at the family reunion, go eat at the kid table. Have that conversation with them. You will learn it. I spend more time with the kids in my family than the adults, and I actually like it. So you will learn a lot. You'll learn a lot.
Well, thank you. Okay, as we mentioned, it's time for some Q&A, but before we start with that, let's give Jennifer a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. And she's going to definitely send in some information in the chat box so that you can find out a little bit more about Youth Sparks, because some people are on here, they are familiar with them, and then some people may want to do different things, whether it's donations, that's there. And of course, we are always want an ambassador. So there's so many different things you can do, whether it's COVID, whether it's cold outside, or whether it's raining. Okay, we're here. But more than anything, we can all pray. Prayer has never hurt anyone. Continue to keep a child you know, a child that you don't know, keep them in your prayers, because I promise you, the prayers of the righteous will avail as much. And in order for these kids to feel the what we like to call the vibrations or feel the spirit, we have to come in as a community. So no, you may not be that person that may want to do advocacy. You may not want to be an ambassador. You may not have $2 to donate to Youth Sparks or whatever the case may be. But if you have the ability to pray, that's more than any of us could even ask for. And we just want to bring it in and continue to stay in the loop of the conversation. All right, it's time to interact, people. All right, I would like, if you have a question that's just burning, we have a few minutes and we want to take some of these important questions. And I'm so sorry that I was not able to read off of all of these great comments that you all were saying. So I'm going to ask if you would, okay, I see a hand being raised. Okay, is it Body?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for pronouncing it correctly the first time.
All right, all right. right. I guess my Toastmasters life is coming to fruition. I can get it now. All right. Thank you. All right. Go ahead and you can
Well,
direct your question to anyone that's on this platform.
my question is, I'm a LCSW, and I worked with some group homes with young ladies who were human trafficking. I felt, I felt their pain, but they liked it, and everything that I had known up until then, the picture that they gave me was completely different.
Absolutely.
And so I was taken aback, and I had to, I went and educated myself a little bit more, and it was ineffective for me. That's why I'm still reaching, because I just really didn't know what to do. I just got to put it out there. And my maternal instincts kicked in as a grandmother, great grandmother, and having a daughter and a son. I felt, why are you out here? But they liked it. And so while they trusted me to talk to me, because they talked to me, they shared with me. We set up different interventions for them to do other than have that train of thought. They end up running away not because of the group home, but because of the court systems, their family members putting them down. It was just so heartbreaking. My thing is, I need some tools.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because again, if you look at some of the stuff we've been bombarded with, it's like, the white van, and they're gonna snatch the kids, and Wayfair is gonna put them in shipping boxes, and QAnon is gonna happen. And I'm like, the victim is sitting right next to you, and you don't see her or him, and you look past them. So what I've learned is that the level of dysfunction and trauma is so real, but we are so resilient as people. Kids are resilient. So when you think about it, I'm out here having sex and completing this sex act, but I'm getting to hang out. We're getting to toss a little money. I got a little fake Louis bag. I'm having a good time. We turning up. That's pretty fun. Like, that's fun. And although she is completing that act, you have to think about it. Is she getting the love that she needs in the moment from that trick and that John? Or is she getting the love that she needs when she hands that money over? I had two young girls years ago, and they joked about, when they got in the program together. And it's like, oh, I remember you. Yeah, I remember you. Like, oh, I put the rims on XYZ car. I did that. Yeah, they owned it. But if you think about it, what we know about sexual assault and sexual abuse, people act out in different ways. You own it, or you might become promiscuous. You might start giving it away. And so I love that you say that, because so many times people expect to have the kids crying and blood out of their eyes, and they're always looking out of the window. I don't even know why, but all of the trafficking kids are always looking out the window. They have on chains and they're bleeding. The pimp today says, don't look like him, look like me. I don't have to lock the door. I don't have to lock the door and keep you here. I'm going to keep it open, and I'm going to dare you to walk out of it, because you are nothing without me. Mm-hmm. So I got you here. I don't need to have you here. I don't need you walking around with a black eye. I need you to look good. So that's why you saw the case here in Sandy Springs, where he got their nails done, he got their teeth done, he got all this plastic surgery for them. They had purses lined up. They were having a really good time. And at times it might be fun, but like you say, Terry, when you lay pillow to head at the end of the night, you want more for yourself, because you were designed for better, but no one's bringing you to the table, giving you the option. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Great question. Do we have anyone else that has a question that they would like to ask? Okay. Hey, Terry.
Hey, how you doing, girl?
I am doing well. It's such a pleasure to see my CASA family. I see some people. Hey, John.
I know.
And
I miss you guys. I miss you guys so much. Lord have mercy.
yes,
But
and
I
Richard,
just
so many people. Go
wanted to
ahead.
piggyback on what Jennifer was saying, in addition to what I going to Miss Body, her remark. You know, I worked in the school system, Fulton County school system for a minute, and then even working with CASA and having volunteered occasionally with the Human Trafficking Institute. A lot of these children, and I'm gonna give you an example. So when I was working middle school, right over here at Sandtown Middle School, this young man came in the class and he had a big wad of money. And all the girls were, oh, you know, excited because he had all this money. He said, I can show you how to get this money. And same thing, hair, nail done, all of that, right? He was the John running for the actual pimp to pull the middle school girls. And what was happening, though, he was getting the troubled girls. So what they do is confide in each other and then fall into that trap. And once they're in there, the Johns make it look like their life is better. And it's not. So it's not that the girls like doing it. It's just that they don't know any other way. This is what they've been conditioned to do. And we talked about this in our book club earlier, how people get the mind. Once they got the mind, they got you. And that's why it's important for, as child advocates, that we are consistent. See, you were just there temporarily. You weren't going to be there at night when she's missing mom, or feeling the rejection, or feeling the pain of having gone through being beaten by. You're not there, but she knows she can run back to John.
Great. That's great. I mean, and these are the type of conversations that are that's going around. I mean, and yeah, you have some people on this platform that are familiar with it. And this is the type of stuff that we need to hear. Is there anyone else that would like to ask a question? Is that Betty?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Betty,
I don't
please.
know how to do the chat thing. What do you do when the parent has a history of post-traumatic stress syndrome, and they have children, and they've already been through the abuse, uh, um, and then they still have the guilt, but they don't know how to help their children? How do you you know what I'm saying? Because not all parents are healthy.
Absolutely. And you know what we do for parents that are not healthy? We love them until they feel better too.
Yes.
We look like working with your kid and building her up, and she walks into the house and we're leaving the family behind. University for Parents is a really great organization here in Atlanta. We send a lot of our kids to University for Parents as well, but we have to also recognize we can't just spot symptoms, spot check. You have to begin to align them. There have been so many parents that I've held and I said, you were a victim too. And let me tell you, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And then she's like, but it happened to me and I was fine. Let me look you in the face and tell you, for the first time in your 36-year-old life, I'm sorry. That should not have happened to you.
Should not have happened.
But let me also introduce you to why I'm going to work with her on her work. You can do yours too. We don't have to leave you behind. We got to connect parents with mental health treatment as well. We just have to.
Yes. Yes.
That makes us. I see two hands. I'm going to start with Miss Baker. Is there something that you have to say? And then I'll go to Richard.
Okay. So hi everybody. Hi all my CASA family. Okay. So what I'm stumped is I've been a part of some of these talks. I've heard some things. I've actually have experienced youth sparks in the past. Didn't get an opportunity to do anything. But where I'm stumped at is, if the kids are getting exposed early on, and they have their peers are bringing them in, people are coming on campus and enticing them as early as elementary and middle school, because we experienced it in elementary school. Then what is some things that are some resources that's out there to start community groups, because I know I did a study in one of my classes where I talked to some young women who were survivor of sex trafficking. There's one lady that was on my team who was well put together, who said that as she was in her early 30s, but as late as 29, she went back for a period because she needed to get some money to get on her feet. So it was a matter of when every time she got out, she either got arrested for prostitution or she went to her church. And I'm very connected to my church, and she was judged. So she wasn't a victim of sex trafficking. She was a hooker, or excuse my level, the other H word that come in here. And now the women at church are grabbing their husband because they don't want this H around their husband. And now she's going from making whatever money she was making on the street to now you telling her to go work at McDonald's and have pride in that. So what are we doing now? What do we have in place now that's going to say, okay, this is a stepping stone. You come here. You don't have to go stay in somewhere where it's 20 other women there. And now they're conspiring now to get out and go and meet their John and learning new tricks on how to make the money versus here's a career that we can set up for you that's going to give you dignity, it's going to give you worth, and it's going to give you ability to make a real living so you can live on your own. And I've never heard anyone talk about that. And that's the part that I'm kind of stumped on, because if you go save them, like the other young lady was saying, they're going to want to go back. They're going to want to go back because they don't have any money. And they've been treated like they've been treated like they're the ones that's wrong. And the John get $50 fine. I mean, well, John don't get anything. The pimp get a $50 fine, and it's not fair that we're not able to save them until they go to jail. And by then, everything that they need has already been taken away from them. But that's just adding insult to injury to now have this title and this record saying that you was a prostitute, and now everybody knows your business, and you can't even talk about it in your community because everybody know your business and they looking at you a certain kind of way, and that's not fair.
And I think you make a lot of valid points here, because this is not just about teaching your kid about sex or sex trafficking. This is about fundamentally who we are as human beings and how we become and stay one with each other. So the first thing is that you are they're working on some expungement bills now. So if you are an adult woman and you picked up charges while you were in the life, or you're an adult man or whatever, then we recognize that you need to be able to have some of those things removed, because we understand that now. But there's going to always be parameters around things. But when you talk about where do we go in the community, you are absolutely right. We don't have to have IHTI scheduling every session for us and creating the forum. You have a church. When's the last time, raise your hand if you went to your neighborhood planning unit. Tell me the last time you spent time going into the PTA. When is the last time that you spend this kind of time? The community groups are there already. We just now have to bring this conversation to them, and not just saying, hey, do you know what a pimp looks like? Let's start at the core of how we respond to everybody with dignity, whether you were a woman in the sex life or not, whether you were a traffic victim that was rescued, or whether you were a prostitute if you chose that behavior. But it takes us all having these conversations and embedding them where we sit. So yes, come to Youth Spark. I can set up a million trainings for you guys, but I'd rather come to yours. I'd rather come to your church and ask your church and have them think critically around, are you a true safe haven? Do you see sin or do you see sex? And which one do you want to be? Because look, the church is in every single community, but why is it that they're not a safe place to either go to talk about this issue or to hold people accountable? So we have to get out of just responding because of this and realizing the cycle. How can I get out of it if I don't have another option? There's another organization called Ronstadt also. Ronstadt actually works with women who've been in the industry and they want to get out of it. So there are a couple of programs for women who've been in the industry, whether you were a prostitution or you were or you were in the sex industry, the adult entertainment industry, and we can get you plugged in there. So you don't have to remember it all, you just have to know. If you reach out to IHTI or youth part, because maybe there's some support for this person.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We have two other questions and then we're going to bring it to a close. I have Richard. Do you still have a question? I think we have a bad connection.
Yeah, I don't know if he's talking. And
Can you hear us, Richard?
Oh, it's not working.
Yeah.
I'm about to mute him.
Okay, I will mute you. Okay.
Oh, he is muted.
I just muted him.
Okay. I have Deborah Dunbar. She would like to ask a question.
Are you guys getting feedback from something else? And it's not.
Yes,
It's not.
yeah, we're getting feedback. Keidra, I just wanted to say that today, today I teach, I teach law enforcement computer classes, but in the process, they teach me so much more. So I learned that back in the day, or fairly recently, that selling drugs was the thing, but that was dangerous. You had to always look around, but now they're selling these women. And so now the new thing, well, not so new anymore, but they figured out, these criminals, that, oh, I won't get in so much trouble if I'm sex trafficking this woman or a group of women, but I would be in so much more trouble if I sold drugs to get caught with it on my possession. So it's interesting. And when they told me that, I was just devastated by that, because I'm like, so a human person, less trouble, a pack of whatever, in their hand or in their body or in their pocket or in their bag. It's just crazy how how that works out, But the question is, so people can give time, their resources, money, like someone mentioned earlier, that it just seems so overwhelming. What could the average person do? Like, I'm interested in helping, and is there like if you have time to do this, if you have 20 minutes for that, if you have an hour, or however way, is any of that making sense?
It is. And thank you, because now you have people who hear like, oh, she can do computer classes. We'd love to have you offer that a couple of times here and there. But I also want to say the single most important thing that you can do is love on the kids in your life. And I know that you want to put on your armor and go save these babies, but you are doing just that. And that's what you have to realize is really impactful. Wherever you are, whoever you are, if it's the people that you volunteer with, if it's your cousins, your nieces, your mentees, pick up the phone and call them, talk to them, engage with them, and let them be seen. And you're doing it. So when you give of your skill, reach out and you might be able to help some of our older women, or DeAndre, I'm thinking about the advisory board group. You come in there and have her do a session on computer skills there. So, I mean, I know it makes us all want to, again, put on our fake badges. We want to turn to police officers, but you will be so much more impactful just taking a look at the kids in your life and touching them.
Right. So Keidria, let me exactly. It is almost 8:15. This has been a very spirited conversation, a critical conversation. I mean, the chat box, you guys, has just blown me away tonight. I am so excited to be able to print it off and just read some of the comments that you have made in the chat box. We are so grateful for you being here, and not only being here, but staying here. Thank you so much to Keidria for moderating tonight. You did an awesome job, Miss Toastmaster, and a mistress, Toastmistress. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jennifer, always that you are the consummate professional in
what you do. And yes, I always give you permission anytime with the language. I am so good with it. I think it definitely brings reality to the work that we do each and every day. For you all who are CASAs, for those of you, I see folk who are ambassadors, others who have joined us just for the conversation. I see a couple of Deltas in the house. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I put in the chat our upcoming conversation. You don't want to miss this. It's around sugaring, which is happening in our communities with our kids on our college campuses. And we have a professional plus a Georgia State administrator who is going to be in the Zoom room to talk about this critical conversation. As well, let me just say, we are focusing on male people, male persons. We are having these critical conversations. John Martin knows, he was in our last one, where it was amazing. And we have one coming up on the last Saturday of the month. It's called, that group is called Fortified. We don't, as females, we don't facilitate that. It is for males by males. And they had a very rich conversation last month, the last time, around male persons and what we are trying to do to continue these conversations with our boys and our men. So definitely help us spread that word. Listen, I am going to bid you all good night. If there is nothing else, all hearts, I like to say when I close my trainings, are all hearts and minds clear. If you have questions, you guys put it in the chat box. I will send it over to Jennifer Swain and hold her feet to the fire to get the answer to us if you have questions. Just want you guys to be safe, stay well, and above all, I say use wisdom.
May I say one last thing? We have many people on the line. If you have an organization, group, family, anything that you would like a platform like this to be trained so that you, along with the other people in your life or in your organization, will want to become more aware on, please drop your information in the chat so that we can definitely set some things up for you. Because we would love to do this in a private session. We just, you and your group or your job or your school, whatever the case may be, we are here for it. Okay.
Righty, that's advocacy there, y'all. About advocacy. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, Kedria.
Thank you, Kedria.
Casey, you finally came on. We see you. Look at him. Look at him. All right, you guys. You guys have a good night. Oh,
Bye.
they're continuing to put information in the chat box, so that's cool. I'll stay here for it. Thanks, Jennifer.
Bye. Thank you, guys. It was lovely being with you.
It was great.
Thank you. It's so good to see some of my CASA people. John, I was in his training.
I call him John Martin. I don't just call him John. I call him John Martin.
Yes, I see so many.
Yeah. I appreciate them being here tonight.
Hey, Miss Washington. Hi, I have some of my friends on.
Howdy, this was awesome.
Great. So share it with your school and others that you know. Thank you so much.
So Kedria, I think it was awesome. Listen, it was really a good session.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. And when you have platforms like this, it opens you up to dive deeper into knowing some things that you can offer. And then those things that you just like, I didn't think about that, you know. So it's conversations like that that I enjoy doing more than anything. And hopefully that people can leave and say, I learned this, and they can share it with someone else.
Yeah, valuable information. It's just not people throwing, and you don't. It's nothing that you can take away. I think that it was invaluable information. She is such a rock star. I just like I like hearing her talk about the work that we do. She's so passionate about it. And I always just get, tidbits from her, the little nuggets that she drops here and there. Linda and is it Kiana?
Mm-hmm.
Guys are still with us. Linda, is she there?
You can, I mean, if you want, you can end them.
I don't know if they're there or not.
You can click on the little dot and let them leave the room.
Yeah, we click on the dot and exit them.
Mm-hmm.
What? Oh, how do you exit them?
You see, if you click on their names,
Uh-huh. Okay, I click
the three dots, what come up?
the three dots, ask to unmute, ask to start video chat. It says something about remove.
Remove them.
Oh, okay. Okay, there you go.
Mhm.
And then Linda Wrestler. Okay. Yeah, probably what happened is like CASAs, they're trying to get their little points in or whatever it is. I know. And I've had we had another session which was
You
so
can stop recording.
oh, okay.